Venezuelans marched to condemn the sanctions announced by the U.S. Treasury Department against the Venezuelan state-run airline Conviasa. El Salvador's President Nayib Bukele stormed the parliament with armed police and troops to demand a loan to better equip the military and police. And the death toll from the novel coronavirus has risen to 980 in China. Hi, from the headquarters of Telesur English in Havana, Cuba. This is From the South. I'm Cristina Escobar. Venezuelans marched on Monday to condemn the sanctions announced by the U.S. Treasury Department against the Venezuelan state-run airline Conviasa. The march began at 1 p.m. local time from Carabobo Square to the presidential palace in Caracas. Protesters denounced imperialist attacks against the Bolivarian government and its institutions. The new U.S. sanctions against Conviasa breach international agreements on global air transport. Last Friday, the U.S. Office of Foreign Assets Control included Conviasa and its fleet of 40 aircraft on its sanctions list, a measure that affects hundreds of workers of the Venezuelan airline. The Russian government on Monday rejected U.S. threats to impose new sanctions against Russian companies that collaborate with Venezuela in the oil sector. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov denounced the destructive policy of the United States, which continues to impose illegal restrictions to protect its interests. Peskov also stressed that the U.S. and a range of other countries are using trade restrictions against third nations, which are illegal according to international law. Last week, the United States Special Representative for Venezuela, Elliot Abrams, warned Russia about its support for Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro. However, the Kremlin spokesman rejected the possibility that new sanctions over Russia's support for the Venezuelan government would present a threat to the Russian economy. Meanwhile, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson stated that Beijing is opposed to any interference in Venezuela's internal affairs. The return to the homeland plan, promoted by the Venezuelan government since 2018, has facilitated the coming back of 17,000 people to the Bolivarian nation. 96 flights have been made from countries like Peru, Ecuador, Colombia, and Chile, bringing back more than 31% of repatriations via air transport, according to Venezuela's consular services. Recently imposed U.S. sanctions against Conviasa Consortium seeks to affect humanitarian policies, such as this return to the homeland plan, directed at the returns of migrants in vulnerable situations. The Treasury Department's decision also affects other programs like Misión Milagro, a medical program meant to transport patients to their consultations, operations, and treatments controls abroad. Bolivia's Supreme Electoral Tribunal put on hold the parliamentary candidature of the former President Evo Morales due to bureaucratic reasons. According to the electoral institution, dozens of candidatures of Bolivian parties are currently on a list with observations because of non-compliance of requirements towards the May 3rd general election. The tribunal stressed that Morales' candidature did not meet three requirements, including an updated birth certificate and other two documents. A source from MAS, the party who requested anonymity, said on Monday that Evo's candidature will be sorted out before the agreed deadline. The trial against Ecuador's former president Rafael Correa on charges of corruption began at the country's highest court today, this Monday. The former president insists the trial is a witch hunt aimed at putting an end to his political career ahead of next year's election. Banned from running for the presidency due to term limits, Correa could still run for office as a legislator in February 2021 if the campaign starts before the trial ends. Ecuador's National Court of Justice stated that the hearings this February 10th against Correa and former Vice President Jorge Glass could not be further delayed, as lawyers previously requested. A total of 21 defendants are charged with bribery, including former ministers María Ángeles Duarte and Walter Solis. Statements made by former Colombian Senator Aida Merlano in Venezuela have confirmed the criminal ties that run deep in sectors of Colombia's political class. We have more in this report.
Following the statements of former Senator Aida Merlano that confirmed previous reports of illegal activities by Colombian politicians to stay in power, The case of the Gerlain and Char families in the city of Barranquilla has regained relevance.
This Char family, of which 9 assembly members are part of, act as if they were presidents. Alex Char was the mayor of Barranquilla until 1 month ago and will allegedly be running for president. They are looking to ally themselves with Uribismo. That is why they entered the government, to find advantageous alliance ahead of the next elections. And their strategy could be one of the strong options for the 2022 elections. But obviously, the Ida Melano case will cast a large shadow, and it may prevent them from running for office.
What Aida Merlano said in Caracas was an open secret. Many sectors of Colombia had not only already denounced the same crimes at various courts, but also in Congress. The schemes the right wing uses to remain in power were widely known, making clear the relationships between paramilitary groups and politicians, as is the case of former President and current Senator Álvaro Uribe, who is involved in various investigations that have suspiciously been stalled.
All of the illegal activities by Uribe Vélez are of public knowledge, but sadly the justice system in this country does not work. How many accusations have been made against him? I believe there are 202. But up until now, the investigations have not moved forward at all. At the moment, we are preparing a case against his brother for paramilitary activities.
With Aida Merlano's statement, the criminal mafias in Colombia have once again been made public and are something that, for many experts, have been going on forever.
She is a reflection of Colombia's political class, and she was forced to flee the country and ask for protection because her life was at risk by players that have always been involved in politics in this country.
Colombia's Supreme Court has requested that Merlano's extradition be expedited via Colombia's foreign ministry, but President Iván Duque has not shown his willingness to move ahead with the process, as he refuses to make the request to the constitutional government of President Nicolás Maduro, while the Bolivarian government has shown its willingness to resume consular relations with Colombia.
Tensions grow in El Salvador. More on this coming up, though. Hi, welcome back. El Salvador's President Nayib Bukele, accompanied by troops, stormed the country's parliament with troops and the armed police on Sunday to demand a loan to better equip the military and police. Despite the military presence, only 28 members of parliament turned up to Sunday's extraordinary session, meaning once again there was no quorum to vote on the $109 million loan. Members from the left-wing FMLN party and the right-wing Arena party refused to attend. Lawmakers were set to meet Monday to discuss Bukele's proposal to better equip the country's security forces in their efforts to combat crime. Bukele said he would give the parliament 1 more week to pass the legislation.
Don't approve this week the territorial control plan, then we will return here on Sunday. We ask God again for wisdom, and we say, God, you asked me for patience, but these scoundrels don't want to work for the people.
El Salvador's Farabundo Martí National Liberation Front Party has reported that the Salvadorian government sent security forces to the homes of its lawmakers and those of the Arena Party to threaten them and try to force them to attend a parliamentary session.
By making illegal use of state institutions, our people continue to be persecuted, our lawyers and their families. Simply, we are making you responsible for this. You cannot play with this. If you think confrontation and coup d'etats will only bring collateral damage to one side, you are wrong. You are wrong.
Close to 20,000 Brazilian oil workers continue their industrial action on the 10th day of an indefinite national strike. The Oil Workers Federation informed on Monday of work stoppages at 39 oil platforms, 18 terminals, 11 refineries, 20 operational bases, and 3 administrative stations. Strikers are demanding the reinstatement of 1,000 workers who were laid off following the closure of the Fafén fertilizer plant in Paraná state. Protesters also demand compliance with the collective agreement and reject the privatization process triggered by the Bolsonaro government. Fomento Bank, which finances the Brazilian state, sold its shares in state-run oil companies Petrobras, which further reduces state participation in the oil sector and encourages the privatization of one of the country's major industries. President of Argentina, Alberto Fernandez, finished a tour of Europe last week in which he sought international support for the renegotiation of Argentina's debt with the International Monetary Fund. Let's hear the story.
During the meetings that President Alberto Fernandez held during his visit to the old continent, he shared the reality of Argentina's deep economic crisis with Pope Francis, numerous heads of state, entrepreneurs, human rights organizations, and students.
Yo vengo de un país.
I come from a country where 40% of the population live below the poverty line. My first obsession is to bring poverty rates back down and to give food to those that are hungry. Argentina has many other problems, all of them happening at the same time, when we are besieged by a massive debt that was irresponsibly taken in a short span of time.
Fernandez warned in all of his meetings that during the 4 years of Mauricio Macri's administration, the former president sold a reality that didn't exist in Argentina, as figures showed every day that people were being further damaged.
We want to develop policies of solidarity to help those most vulnerable and to distribute incomes with more equality. It is not an impossible task. The major problem in Latin America is inequality, the gap that separates the rich from the poor. Wealth is condensed among the few, and poverty is spread among millions. How long can we live with such inequality?
Support from the Vatican, Italy, Spain, Germany, and France for Argentina to restructure its debt with the IMF were impactful. Even the IMF issued a statement acknowledging that Macri's debt was unpayable.
They are dismantling one of the cornerstones Macri used to sell his internal policies, based on looting and external dependency, which was why we were left out of the world. But this tour is proving that Argentina is an important nation, a serious nation, that can honor its debts. To us, it matters seeing Argentina as a country that is respected.
Juliana Marino also says that the way in which Argentina can eventually pay off its debt could be transcendental, since it could pave the way for other indebted nations to right themselves from those shackles.
This tour has great political impact, not only in Argentina. It shows that previous progressive governments didn't isolate themselves from the world or from Latin America. The president's sincerity has shown that he has the will to achieve his goals.
On the last day of his tour, President Fernandez also met with human rights organizations and the heads of a mining giant.
British members of parliament have urged Prime Minister Boris Johnson to halt plans to deport 50 people to Jamaica on Tuesday. More than 170 MPs have asked the British Prime Minister to halt plans to charter a flight to send dozens of people to a country that is unfamiliar to them. The decision is linked to what has become known as the Windrush scandal, which has seen immigrants who were invited to establish themselves in the UK between 1948 and 1971 from Caribbean countries such as Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago and Barbados face deportation now. A recently leaked report suggested the government should consider ending the deportation of foreign-born offenders who came to the UK as children. The Home Office previously said the flight to Jamaica was specifically for removing foreign criminals. And 2020 is an election year in the Dominican Republic, beginning with the local elections next weekend. This will be an indicator ahead of the presidential election in May.
Just a week to go, and the Dominican Republic is getting ready for its municipal elections.
There is no more important day than Election Day, because people know that is when all citizens are equal, and that sense of equality needs to be protected.
More than 64,000 electoral military police will be on duty. The Electoral Board is getting the voting centers and the ballots ready for the local elections of the 16th of February. So what is the political outlook?
These municipal elections are complicated because in the capital the race is very close. The two main parties, the PLD and the PRM, are neck and neck in the polls for mayor. In the case of Santiago, which is a very important province, the PLD candidate, Abel Martinez, does have a clear lead.
Automated voting will take place alongside manual votes. 18 municipalities with their 58 districts will use the automatic system, while the other 140 municipalities with 178 districts will be manual.
The Dominican Republic is one of the few countries in Latin America where there has been no rupture in political class. The traditional party system remains intact, even though it's discredited and has lost people's trust.
Mayors and local councillors will be elected in 32 provinces, 158 municipalities and 235 districts. In all, 3,849 posts are up for elections by nearly 7.5 million voters at over 16,000 polling stations.
The people will vote for those who can give them something, not public service, not big ideas or a vision of society, but some direct help to help them survive, which is what people expect, and which is the legacy of this neoliberal system in which we are living in the Dominican Republic.
There has been a campaign against the selling of votes under the slogan, "If you sell your vote, we all lose." The results of these elections will be a test of what is to come in the presidential elections in May.
We're taking one last break, but stay with us. Welcome back. Chinese President Xi Jinping donned a face mask and had his temperature checked on Monday while visiting medical personnel and patients infected with the coronavirus. The Chinese president visited Beijing's Titan Hospital on Monday to meet with doctors and observe the treatment of patients. Xi also spoke via video link to doctors in Wuhan, according to the state media. Later, the Chinese president visited a residential community in central Beijing to investigate and oversee efforts to contain the epidemic. The coronavirus outbreak has prompted unprecedented action by the Chinese government, including locking down entire cities in Hubei province, as well as cutting transport links nationwide, closing tourist attractions and telling hundreds of millions of people to stay indoors. Meanwhile, the death toll from the novel coronavirus has risen to 980 in mainland China as millions of people start returning to work after an extended holiday designed to slow the spread of the virus. The National Health Commission said 97 people died on Sunday, making it the deadliest day since the outbreak started. The number of confirmed cases nationwide now stands at over 40,000. The outbreak has turned many cities into ghost towns, with most people staying indoors, but on Monday, traffic returned to the roads as millions made their way to work.
Recently, the media has paid a lot of attention to the relevant arrangements of China and the World Health Organization's joint inspection groups. Firstly, I would like to explain that through agreement between both sides, this group will be known as China World Health Organization Joint Inspection Group. The main purpose of this inspection is for experts from both sides to engage in in-depth exchanges on the current epidemic situation and prevention and control situation.
135 cases of the new coronavirus have been confirmed on a cruise quarantined in Yokohama, Japan, according to statements by the ship's captain on Monday. The outbreak on the Diamond Princess cruise, which has been docked at the Yokohama port since Monday, is the largest outside China. About 3,700 people are quarantined on the ship, with passengers largely confined to their cabins. The Ministry of Health has announced new cases almost daily since the quarantine began a week ago, and the increase reported by the captain on Monday was the largest yet. The leader of Germany's right-wing Christian Democratic Union will no longer bid to replace Angela Merkel as Chancellor, according to reports revealed on Monday. Annegret Kramp-Karrenbauer announced she would not stand as the CDU candidate for German Chancellor in the upcoming federal election. She also stepped down as the party's chairwoman, according to the CDU press office. Kramp-Karrenbauer has tipped to take over as chancellor in 2021. The move comes 2 days after Merkel fired government commissioner Christian Hirt for congratulating a state governor elected with the help of the far-right Alternative for Germany party. It is considered taboo for mainstream parties to collaborate with the far-right party in Germany. The leader of the Ireland's Sinn Féin party described the unprecedented success in Saturday's general election as a revolution at the ballot box. The first results on Sunday night gave Sinn Féin the largest number of first preferences votes with 24.5%. For the first time, the Nationalist Party beat the two traditional parties that have dominated the Irish government for decades. Fianna Fáil secured 22% of the vote, while the ruling party, Fine Gael party, took 21%. Ireland's proportional voting system means Fianna Fáil is still predicted to win the most number of seats in Parliament. Sinn Féin's ultimate goal is the reunification of Ireland with an end to British rule of Northern Ireland. The party has stressed as a condition for any coalition government immediate preparations for a referendum on Irish unity, which it would push London to hold within 5 years.
This is not a protest vote. This is certainly an election that is historic in proportions. This is changing the shape and the mould of Irish politics. This is not a transient thing, this is just the beginning. The best outcome is a government without Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil, so that's the first thing that I want to test, whether or not that is possible. I also have consistently said that I will talk to and listen to everybody. I think that's what grown-ups do. I think that's what democracy demands.
The chairperson of the African Union Commission, Moussa Faki, stressed the importance of finding a political solution in Libya and demanded the United States remove Sudan from its list of state sponsors of terrorism. All of this during the 33rd ordinary session of the AU Summit. The 33rd African Union Summit was held under the theme Silencing the Guns, Creating Conducive Conditions for Africa's Development. In his opening address, the newly elected chairperson of the AU, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, outlined the priorities in driving Africa's growth, including deepening the unity of the continent and ensuring good governance and peace. Ramaphosa announced that the African Continental Free Trade Area will become operational in July 2020. This will be a major engine for Africa's integration into the global economy as a player of considerable importance and scale. And we stay on topic because during the African Union Summit in Addis Ababa, the organization's Peace and Security Council chief said he wants to take on a role in the faltering UN-led efforts to achieve peace in Libya.
We want, as African Union, when the cessation of hostilities becomes officially signed, we want to join UN in an assessed mission in Libya to evaluate what is necessary to oversee, to make sure that the cessation of hostilities is respected by everybody, and we want also to be part of the deployment of the observer deployment mission in Tripoli and elsewhere in the country.
Israeli planes have carried out airstrikes on the besieged Gaza Strip, causing extensive damage, according to local media reports. The Israeli military claimed that the airstrikes were a response to a rocket that was allegedly fired at Israel from Gaza on Sunday. There are not reports of any casualties so far. The incident comes amid heightened tensions in the region in the wake of U.S. President Donald Trump's Middle East peace plan. Iran confirmed the successful launch of a satellite on Sunday, but it failed to put it into orbit. The attempted launch of the Safar, which means victory in Farsi, comes days before the 41st anniversary of the Islamic Revolution and crucial parliamentary elections in Iran. The Safar satellite fell short of reaching orbit, the defense ministry said. A ministry spokesman said that the satellite was successfully launched and went 90% of the way, reaching an altitude of 540 kilometers. And we've come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net and join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. For Telesur English,